somehow I managed to buy, I think, 15 books in the month of March. And that is absolutely wild. That is a book every other day. That is far too many books. It is 110% fueled by the fact that I am this close to finishing the build of like my dream shelves that I've wanted since I was a little tiny kid watching Pulling Bananas Books videos. I'm still gonna have empty space, but I hope to fill it at a much more reasonable pace. But seeing as I brought home 15 books in just a few short weekends, really, is what it comes down to, I figured this would be a great book haul video. I'm trying to be a better library card user, and I think kind of meeting in the middle of that is reading books at the library that I like, and then kind of waiting for them to pop up at my favorite like used or secondhand bookstores, and then adding them to my library that way. Because the one thing that's worse than not liking a book is having bought that book because you were so sure you were gonna like that book, and now you have to decide how and when and where you're gonna part ways with it, you know? Whereas if you just get it from the library and you like it, it's a win-win. And then when you find it, you can add it to your collection. So the first couple of books in this haul, that is exactly the scenario. One of them I talked about very recently, and that is Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner. This is just a super light, fun, funny, fast-paced, woman-loving woman, kind of like rom-com about two soccer players who play for a club in New Orleans, but then they also have their careers with the women's national team. And if you want to know more about this book, that's in my March wrap-up, because I did read this just recently. And so when I saw it, I knew I wanted it in my collection, because I think this is such a good like normalization book, and it's something that I would love, and I'm so excited to have in my collection to kind of just like lend to a friend here and there and be like, trust me, you'll like it. So Cleat Cute by Meryl Wilsner was one of the first books that I picked up. And then another one that I have read before, and I actually own, like, I think it's the really ugly, weird Hulu tie-in cover, but that is Little Fires Everywhere. This cover I think is so cool. Like, I love the cold tones of it, and the blues and the greens and the little bit of light that's just on these houses. I think it is such a good cover, and I've always wished that this is the cover that I had. And I found it for $3, so I couldn't not get my dream cover of Little Fires Everywhere. So, book number 2. The third one that I think falls into this category but kind of doesn't is one that I read in school, probably like middle or early high school, and that is Zora Neale Hurston's Their Eyes Were Watching God. And lately I've been really thinking about the assigned reading that I enjoyed back then, and I know I would still enjoy it now, but I'm sure that it is in a much different way. So stuff like this, Fahrenheit 451, To Kill a Mockingbird, Gatsby, like some of the Orwell stuff, like I would love to get my hands on and do like a reread as an adult. And so when I saw this one, I thought that that would be a perfect opportunity to start that process of assigned reading rereads for fun. So here we are. This next category of books that I would say I've got are things that I didn't know were coming my way, but I know something about them. And so the first one is All My Rage by Sabaa Tahir, and this author wrote an Ember in the Ashes series, which I love. I think is so good. And I truly couldn't tell you what this book is about, but it's got great blurbs on the back. I'm usually not swayed by blurbs on the back, but Nicole Yoon from The Sun Is Also a Star, which is a really good read, says, in richly evocative prose and with characters so well crafted I'm sure I know them, All My Rage takes a clear-eyed look at the ways in which we hurt and heal each other. It's a gorgeous meditation on grief and love and the possibilities each of us have for redemption. That's kind of all I need to know that I think I'm going to absolutely love this book, because I am a huge character reader. I kind of almost could care less about a plot. I get so invested in characters, and that paired with the writing of Sabaa Tahir, I think will be the chef's kiss that I'm hoping for. The next one is not a sequel, but kind of like a companion to The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris, and this is Silka's Journey. So this follows a character that you meet in The Tattooist, and I absolutely know this is going to be a truly devastating story. I don't expect it to have the same kind of like well-rounded ending as Tattooist, and I didn't necessarily want to seek this book out. I was like, if it comes to me, it comes to me. And then when I walked into the local shop, it was just sitting on a basket of like, good reads you should try. And I was like, I think this is the universe sending the book to me. So I'm not sure when I will get to this. It's definitely one where you have to just be prepared for it. It's going to be a rough one. But I did really, really like the way Heather Morris wrote Tattooist of Auschwitz. And that one was really interesting, particularly because she really heavily interviewed the man that the book is based on, his story and his journey. And I don't think she had that same kind of interview experience with Silka, but I know the research is going to be so heavy, and I feel like I can trust her to like tell this story even if she didn't have the same exact resources. But who knows, maybe she did. The next one, I'm super stoked to have found this because I've looked for it in several places and not been able to find it. But then furthermore, I did not know that they released bundled editions of this series. And this is books 1 through 3 of Tales of the City, which is a really great Elliot Page show. My girlfriend and I binged it a few months ago. And it just follows this massive found family kind of situation in San Francisco, and everybody's queer, and this story spans like generations through this found family, and like this is just cool. Like, I'm sorry, yeah, I want this massive thing on my shelf. And like the cover kind of reminds me of Richard Scarry from like those books as a kid. I don't know, I thought it was really neat, and they make the whole series like this in a chunk of like 3. Like, this is cool. I think this is a really cool find, and I don't know that I would have found this if I had gone to like Barnes. So stoked to have this one and have found it in a cool new form. The next category is books I know nothing about but have some inkling that I will like because a trusted source has told me so, and or I know nothing about them, but the covers just really, really called my name for some reason or another. And 2 of which, actually at this point, I have already read. So let's start with those ones. The very first book I picked up, actually, in this whole month of a haul was The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. I didn't really know anything about this book, but I had seen it plastered everywhere. Also, this is another like gorgeous cover, like the spacing and the font and the picture being behind the words like it is, and then the color choice and like the layout of the spine. This whole book is gorgeous, and that's initially what caught my eye, on top of seeing it literally everywhere. But it is about a neighborhood, I guess you'd say a neighborhood in Pennsylvania where it is mostly made up of Jewish and African American populations, and it's kind of a story about how your little tight-knit communities within a geographical community really come together and like meddle in one another's business, but it's typically for the greater good. This, in the best way possible, feels like a book that would have been assigned reading. Like, I feel like people could study this book and these characters and these relationships and the meaning of community and the sense of community and what it means to be American and how different people perceive that and how people interact with people with differing opinions on that same matter. Like, the list goes on. I just finished this, and I would absolutely love to do a reread where I don't have to meet all the characters, I just get to focus on them. So, Heaven and Earth Grocery Store, I'm so happy to add this one to my library collection. And then the next one, which I'm currently reading right now, I'm about halfway through, The Ops Room Girls by Vicky Beebe. This looks straight out of Hallmark, like I know that. I picked this up because it was at my favorite local used shop and I trust their staff recommendations so well, and it was on display with a little blurb. But I also think women are really cool, and I think aviation is really cool. So this book was really just screaming the two things that I love. And so it is about, as you could tell, a trio of women in 1940 England who joined the Women's Auxiliary Air Force. And it is about the reasons that they chose to join, what they've gotten out of joining, and that's kind of as far as I am, but it is like another World War II adjacent timeline read. So there's this. It is part of a trilogy, I found out once I started this. The second book seems like explicitly Christmas, but I don't know that you have to read it. And then it seems like there's a really heartwarming conclusion book. So maybe this could be a duology and that middle one is just kind of like a bonus. But if it's a trilogy and I need to read that middle one, I can tell you right now I'm stopping here because I don't want Christmas. Next, I picked up Bridget Jones's Diary by Helen Fielding. And I don't know what I know or why I know anything about this book, which I think is funny. Like, it's just in my head as something that I think I'm supposed to know about. And this copy looks pretty well loved, pretty well enjoyed, and that to me is a good sign. And so I just kind of decided that some force was telling me I needed to read this, and I truly don't know where in my brain that came from, but we'll find out, maybe, hopefully. The next book is one that I have seen. It is kind of like Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow. It is in the background of every single book video. It is on everybody's shelf, and maybe that's just because the spine stands out so much, but that is The Vanishing Half by Brit Bennett. I don't really know what this is about beyond the fact that, from my understanding, it follows a set of twins who are Black, and I don't think they were separated at birth, but one is living their life, and then another one, somewhat separately, is living their life in like a white passing form. And I think it's about them coming back together and kind of exploring how what was and could have been and is are all related and changeable and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. But I truly don't know. Don't take my word for it. I don't think you're looking to take my word for it because I think I'm the last person on planet Earth to have yet to read this book. When I saw it for just a few bucks, I figured I'd take the bait. I'll try it out. Next up, I think this book came to me from Jack Edwards over at Jack in the Books, and that is Colson Whitehead's Harlem Shuffle. This is about a furniture store owner in, you guessed it, Harlem, and I believe this story kind of spans in like different versions, if not different timelines, of this like very charismatic character who owns a furniture store. And I think that anything that takes place in like a hustling, bustling city might as well be a fantasy read to me, because I am so far removed from that and that pace and that speed of life that I get so sucked in when things take place in places like that. So I had some inkling of like familiarity with this, but not really much. I couldn't tell you what anybody said about it, but that's why it jumped out to me on the shelf, especially with the bright colors too. And then when I was like, oh, it's Harlem, I think I'm gonna really enjoy that one, and just how fun it is to take a trip to somewhere that is so incredibly different than the inland Northwest where I am. Next up is a book that I am kind of blindly trusting because it has one of those pesky, unremovable Reese's Book Club stamps on it, and that is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reed. This has a crazy cover, and I know nothing about it, but I do know that I generally trust Reese's Book Club picks because I think they are great talking points for like people in my life, whether that be friends, coworkers, other people who you see reading these books. Like, they're such a grab for so many people that, and they're usually good, like they're well vetted. I think I always have a fun time reading them. And so as much as I hate badges that can't be removed, I do kind of like that they can't be removed because it's like a little beacon to me that I will probably enjoy this book. So we'll find out, because it's definitely on my TBR for this month, as I blindly picked it for my book club with my friends. So there's that. The last book in this category, which I could not tell you where the heck this came from, maybe Nick over at Books Are Sick, maybe Jack Edwards, maybe some random TikTok that flew by, but that is Killers of the Flower Moon by David Grann. I know nothing about this. I know literally nothing about this. Zero, zip, zilch, nada. But I added it to my collection, and we're gonna see how I enjoy it. It is so insanely different than the rest of the stuff in this haul, the rest of the stuff I own and read. Maybe the fact that it's a movie now, maybe that's where I've seen it. I don't know. So this next category of books I'm gonna call bought because of Nick over at Books Are Sick. And I've got 2 books left. And the first one I'm gonna go with is Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. This kind of is like Ops Room Girls, women, aviation, cool. From my understanding, it is about a girl who somehow survives a like shipwreck at sea, and then she grows up in Montana, which is close to me, and so that's familiar, and then ends up with a fascination about aviation. And it's also gorgeous, like the blue and the orange and the cream. I don't know, seemed raved about, seems right up my alley. It's got a lot of my interests in it, and I am almost positive that I will definitely be reading this in April. And then the final book of the haul is Perfectly Floppy, a little bit broken in, massive, an absolute chunk of a read, and that is Nick over at Books Are Sick's favorite book of all time, and that is 11/22/63 by Stephen King. I am a Stephen King newbie. I have read one book, which was actually coincidentally Nick over at Books Are Sick's least favorite Stephen King book, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. Very drastically different story and situation and length compared to this, but I have recently fallen down into a TikTok rabbit hole and a media rabbit hole of the Kennedys and the assassination and what we know about it, what we don't know about it, what we have in our museums about it. Like, just, I have consumed so much media revolving around Jackie Kennedy. And so when he put out that video saying that this was his favorite book, and then I had kind of just read a Stephen King one, I was like, I want to read more of those. And then I saw this, I was like, okay, the deal's a deal. I'll do it. Twist my arm. It's fine. We'll read it. I don't know when I'm going to get to this, because I'm not going to lie. This is intimidating. This is massive to me. I typically read books that are like 300 to 400 pages, I think is my average span. And this is 1,080. Like, I'm pretty convinced Stephen King just wanted to pass 1,000 for this book. And we'll see if it's worth it. I'm quite intrigued. And that is my super unreasonably large book haul from the month of March. Like, I cannot, it doesn't matter when I bought these, but the fact that I brought them all home in 1 month is ridiculous. And I cannot wait to have the space for them to live on my shelves properly. So, coming soon.